Yo, what is going on, everyone? I have a long-awaited review on my Hati-S wireless review. But I do want to say thank you so much to Boardsy for shouting me out in a tweet. I really do appreciate it. It has been incredible. People I've been following for well before I started doing review videos have followed me back, commented on some, and it's really, really nice. I genuinely do thank you very, very much. It is very nice to see that kind of support coming from somebody that I really do look up to in this mouse peripheral industry. But yeah, anyway, on to the review. And I'm gonna, at the end of my video, I'm gonna talk about the giveaway I'm gonna do also. So I'm gonna be mainly comparing the Hati-S wireless to the G303 Shroud Edition and the Viper Mini. The main comparison will be for the Viper Mini and the Hati-S wireless. Just assume that this is a Ponage Sim 2, mainly because I don't think, because I know it's a clone of the Viper Mini, and after trying the Viper Mini shape, I can confidently say that I would not get the Ultra Sim 2 just for the shape, not for anything else, and I'll get into why. So I do want to do just a quick rundown of the specs for this mouse before I get into anything else, just because some people care about that a little bit more. So in my initial impressions, I did say that the Hati-S 8.0s did not feel as good as the glorious Model O implementation of KO 8.0s, and I do want to say that there is a break-in period because they feel much clickier, much more tactile than they did before, and that's a good thing. I did not want Hati-S clicks to lose to a fucking glorious product. These do feel much better than day one. In terms of mouse feet, they're rounded, pretty well. They're not the best, obviously, but they do feel really good on almost every single surface I've used them on. I've used them on a Zero, even an Odin Eclipse. I now have used this on an Aqua Control Plus. I used it on an Odin Infinity. I've used it on every smooth cloth pad and hybrid rough pad that I have, and they feel consistent over everything. The only difference is obviously the texture of the mouse pad, whether it's a speed or a control pad. So they do feel good. You don't have to get aftermarket skates if you don't want to. I personally am probably eventually going to get core pads for this mouse. They are just a bit thin for me, but that is all personal preference, and I just prefer core pads over everything. In terms of side buttons, it's actually a really interesting design. I do not know if this is like a QC issue that I got, but this is pretty fucking cool. So mouse button 4 is like a normal position, but mouse button 5 is actually protruded much more than mouse button 4. This is probably the best angle I can get it at. So the mouse button 4 over here is much more in. It doesn't come out of the mouse as much as mouse button 5 does. And the reason I like this is because it's more out. It feels like it's easier to reach for me than mouse button 4 because I have, really short hands. So I typically always have an issue with reaching mouse button 5 for almost every mouse. It's not just this one. And because it's poked out more, it feels much better. It feels like I can reach it just a little bit easier than some other mice. In terms of Hati-S software, it's really bare bones. There's not a whole lot you can do with it. The only thing I've used it for is changing the debounce time to 1 millisecond. I changed the pulling rates, the pulling rate hertz. You can change LOD, DPI, obviously. You can change the DPI effect. I just leave it at normal. It literally just flashes the colors that it's at, and then it shows you the percentage of the mouse. So speaking of the percentage of the mouse, my mouse did die within a week and a half of consistent use. This was gaming every day, even just for general browsing. And typically with mice that don't have RGB, I have not had an issue with wanting to check my battery life. But to die within a week and a half is pretty weak, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just not too sure as to why it died within a week and a half, but it is just really unfortunate that I already had to charge it so early into owning it. It charges relatively fast. I want to say within an hour it might be full charge. I'm only guesstimating because I left my room for 2 hours and I came back to it fully charged. The DPI switch, which is surprisingly easy to actuate, but hard at the same time. You can see I'm pressing all over here as close as humanly possible to the actual switch, and I can't get the DPI to change. There would be a little light right there, but if you drop it, even scrolling fast with my scroll wheel right here, even just doing this, I've hit it by accident and it changes my DPI, and that's just really unfortunate that it actuates so easily. Something that's really positive that comes with this mouse are obviously these grips that I've had on the mouse this entire time. So they obviously come with more grips than just the side grips. You can basically basically cover the entire mouse with the grips. And I actually really like that idea. So you do get the weight reduction, but if someone considers them uncomfortable or just doesn't like holes on mice in general, they can just feel free to cover it up. It adds a little bit of size also to the mouse. So if it's a little bit thin, if the hump isn't big enough, then you can make it just a little bit thicker on the sides and on the top shell. Personally, I put them on the sides, so I typically don't care about holes on my mice, but these, as you can see, they're really fucking big, and they were just really, really uncomfortable. Like, I was digging my thumb into the side just from the unboxing. I was like, holy shit, I need to already put the grips on. I thought I could get a day of use without them, but I can't personally. So it is all just dependent on you, whether you can deal with them, whether you can't. Then at least they give you the option to not deal with them at all. So in terms of my experience with the mouse, other than the battery life, clicks have been really responsive. The sensor hasn't spun out while playing either, which is pretty much the only thing I can really look for. I don't notice any input delay, anything like that. Lift off distance is perfectly fine. I set it to 1 millimeter. So everything is perfectly fine with the sensor. I haven't had any issues. Obviously, if you have issues, please let me know in the comments so that people, when they do look for them, they can just find it right below and it'll be easier for them. Just based off of like a quick comparison between the Viper Mini and the Hati-S, because I really do feel like a Viper Mini shape or a Pwnage Sim 2 shape is really the main competitor with this mouse, which is really weird because they don't feel anything alike. So because the slope comes down instead of like a hard stop, much like the Hati-S where it's like it hits its peak and then it fastly comes down, this is a much more gradual slope down. And the only issue that I have noticed consistently with mice like this is when I pick up the mouse like to swipe, it feels loose because it doesn't feel my palm nearly as much as a Hati-S. A Hati-S feels from like the middle of my hand all the way to the bottom, this entire area of my hand right there. And that is where I get all my stability when aiming. And I don't get it with this mouse because it's flat. Although the hump is big, it is still a relatively flat mouse for claw. If you palm fingertip, that's definitely going to be like the best grip you can get with this. Maybe a fingertip, but it doesn't feel as good as palm fingertip, definitely. So that's really the main comparison. Cinedote made a really good explanation on the differences between the shapes, and I'll just leave his video in the description so that people can get a much better detailed description than what I could put out, honestly. So in terms of the comparison between the G303 and the Hati-S, the main similarities, obviously, and this is all if you know you like the G303 shape or if you want it a bit bigger. The main similarities is the back hump, surprisingly. This back hump just digs right into that center that I really, really want the hump to be. Although the hump is not as wide as the Viper Mini, it's definitely much more narrow, right? But it protrudes more, it's much higher and much more palm contact. It hits that spot exactly where I want my mouse hump to be in my palm. So I have like really good stability with this mouse, and that's why it's one of my favorite mice. And it happens exactly the same with a Hati-S. It fills that area much better. It's not as high and it doesn't fill that spot much like a G303, but it is much wider at the back, so there's more contact, and then it's a bit like lower. It feels like you can move the mouse a lot more freely, especially if you micro adjust and everything. It's definitely going to be a bit easier with a Hati-S than a G303. So the most dreadful part of the review, price and if it's worth it. I bought mine at 120 USD, and if you cannot buy it at that price, I would not suggest buying this mouse. It is a G-Wolves product, don't get me wrong. $30 more and you can get a Logitech product, a super light, same weight, bigger shape, much more options for mouse feet. If there's a QC issue with a Logitech product for God knows what fucking reason, you can RMA that shit so fast. Good luck getting a hold of a Chinese company, explaining your issue, making sure they understand it, and getting you a unit for free for warranty. That's gonna be the pain in the ass. This mouse was $100. That is like an end game claw grip shape for small-handed users like me. It is so good for what it offers you, but it just doesn't offer that 150 price tag that a lot of other mice have, which is really sad to see. And the reason why I bring up that 150 is because I saw it on sale for $150. G-Wolf said that because of the lack of availability for the parts that they need for the mice, it's gonna have to be bumped up in price, which is unsurprising. You know, it's happening throughout the entire industry. So the earlier we deal with it, the better. If you're gonna buy this mouse, just don't buy it at 130. It just really isn't worth it. I can't suggest it, but at 110, at 100 to 120, I can kind of get behind the 120 price tag. It's really a shape of its own. Surprisingly, it's not a clone of something else, like a direct copy. There's just a ton of other mice, even wired. If you bring wired into it, I would probably just paracord the wired version and get aftermarket skates. It like the shape is all it has going for it. Tons of mice have KO 8.0s now. Almost every wireless mouse uses a 3370. It's really just up to you. I personally won't suggest it at anything higher than 120, but if it's at 100, that's a fucking steal. Like just at $20 is really, really good. But do not buy it at anything over 120. And I'm worried that it's going to just keep going up in price because of the lack of parts that they are unable to get. But yeah, that's pretty much all for my review. In terms of the giveaway, so I want to do maybe 2 mice, and the way I'm going to do the giveaway is I'm going to make a video obviously announcing the giveaway, something in the comments below. I want it to be funny. Make a fucking stupid shitty dad joke, and honestly, I'll just fucking throw you in. And then so I'm gonna list a number to a name. So if the first name I see of Jeff, 1 will be Jeff, 2 will be somebody else, 3 will be somebody else, and so forth. And then I'm gonna go into Google with my screen being recorded, of course, and I'm gonna do a number generator, and whatever number that lands on, that will be the person that wins the giveaway. I'm gonna obviously try to mask my identity during this whole thing. I don't even want to show my face, let alone have somebody know my real government name and address. So I'm going to figure out all that. It's going to take me some time, of course. I really want to do this within this week or next week. It's really hard to determine. But yeah, I'll get to working on that as soon as I can. But yeah, thank you again to all the new subs, all the support that I've been getting. I really, really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next upload. Peace. Oh my god, that guy scared me.
Why do I respawn or take 1 step and I'm dead? Like, why? If I get it's balanced, like the damage.
You're
What?
so
It was on you. It was on your fat body.
This shit makes me dumb fast. That's
He's
my
not
life.
offended by
I
this.
was
So lit,
fucking
too.
that whole way up.
I fired one. He's 1, Oscar. I got him. I got him. I cracked another. I hit her. Dead. This one's also 1. Dead. There's a vehicular. Oh. You both tried that? And you just... Damn, all 3 of you tried that. That sucks.